I don't want the Titans to gain a goddamn yard. Sunday, September 30th, a day that the city of Nashville, the state of Tennessee, the entire world, it's going to be the day that the Titans are going to remember the Eagles. James Worthington is here. I am Adrian Fedke. I'm pumped up. We're heading to Nashville, baby.
Yeah, it should be a good game. I think, the Eagles are coming off a decent week, I'd say. But you know what? They got to get down there. They got to take care of business. Hopefully they're not looking too far ahead to Minnesota. But we'll see what we got going.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. And, I got a question to start. Because obviously this game this week, it's reminding me of Chip Kelly. It's reminding me of Marcus Mariota. But, man, I'll tell you what, I'd much rather have Doug's golden boy than Chip's golden boy. Can you imagine if they actually pulled that trade off and it's Marcus Mariota in Philly instead of Carson Wentz?
I couldn't imagine at all. I mean, I guess we've gotten so used to Carson and being so blessed, man. And I mean, Mariota has been, injury prone. He hasn't been as good as I honestly thought he would be, whether that's system or whatever. I'm glad because I think Chip Kelly was, dangling Fletcher Cox out there, first round picks. Like we wouldn't be just without Wentz. We'd be without a lot of people.
We would be the Dallas Cowboys right now if Marcus Mariota was in Philadelphia. I mean, the picks and the players that were talked about and reported, it was outrageous. Michael Kendricks, maybe even Fletcher Cox, like multiple first-round picks. And then you compare that potential deal to what the Carson Wentz one was. I mean, it's not even close. And Carson Wentz is obviously the better quarterback, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Mariota's decent, but like we've talked about in all these shows, Wentz is special. He's definitely a franchise quarterback. And, yeah, we gave up probably less to get him. It's not even comparable. I don't think really the Browns turned much of that into anything. So, at the end of the day, we made out a lot better, with not getting what Chip Kelly wanted.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the game now. We got that out of the way. So the first thing I want to get into is this. The Eagles, they have trouble against teams with quick passing games, teams that like to throw the ball a ton. While the Titans, they have 98 rushing attempts on the season. That's tied for third most in the league. They run it 54% of the time. If there's a formula that does not beat Philadelphia, it's teams that are run-based, run-oriented. And I don't see how the Titans are going to go and be successful on the ground. I mean, Derrick Henry is averaging like 3.7 yards a carry, I want to say off the top of my head. He's just not a zone runner. They run a zone scheme. He's not that guy. Dion Lewis, I mean, he runs the scheme better, but he's a scat back. He's not going to be carrying the ball more than 10 times a game. So they have a system in place that doesn't really work for the backs that they have. And then they don't have receivers. And then they have Marcus Mariota with this nerve problem in his hand. I don't know how they're going to move the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think they're going to move the ball too much, especially not if they're going to stick to the run all game. I think the Eagles statistically are the number one rush defense in the league. And I mean, last year they were great against the rush as well. So you don't really, you're not really effective when you try to run the ball against the Birds. We have seen a couple teams, get something against them, but for the most part, the Eagles are pretty stout. They're going to have to pass the ball to move it on us. They're down Delaney. I don't really think they have much of a receiver. Corey Davis he's talented, but doesn't really blossom. I mean, Lewis out of the backfield is one to watch, but I mean, running the football, man, I don't think you're going to have success against us if that's your MO.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Corey Davis. Corey Davis was my third receiver last year in that draft. I wasn't like as crazy about him as I was about John Ross and Mike Williams. John Ross really isn't doing much either. Davis, I mean, he only had 2 catches last week. And you look at that receiving core, he's all they have. Tywan Taylor, Nick Williams, Tajay Sharp, freaking Rashard Matthews just quit on the team, so he's not there anymore. They lost Delanie Walker. They have nobody to throw the ball to.
Yeah, no one really scares me on the team besides Lewis out of the backfield. I mean, Davis, like I just said, has a bunch of talent, but he hasn't put it together yet. You know, it would be typical Eagles on the road for him to like go off, but well, you know, I don't foresee that.
Double move on Jalen first play, huh?
I think our corners too, like they're going to play better.
I agree. Yeah,
they both just Darby and Mills have kind of had, you know, up and down starts of the year. Sidney Jones has looked pretty good. I think this is a good game for the Eagles to kind of get like the ball rolling, kind of getting their feet, you know, in the season. Doug Peterson said they don't really have an identity offensively yet.
Yeah,
great week to kind of establish one. We'll see if Alshon plays, which will be a huge help. But yeah, man, I mean, I think it'll be better.
Yeah. We'll get to the offense temporarily. Just one more quick note on the Titans offense. They're going to get Jack Conklin back this week. So he tore his ACL in the wild card matchup against the Chiefs. So he makes his return, obviously huge for that offensive line. A very underrated offensive line, but one that actually took a step back last year after having such a great 2016. So your tackles are great. Taylor Lewan and Conklin. I mean, those guys are really good. And then the rest of them, you got Quinton Spain and Josh Kleiner as your guards, and then Ben Jones is your center. So it's a pretty solid offensive line. But then when you talk about the defensive line of the Eagles and Fletcher Cox and that deep penetration, well, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I was a pretty big fan of Tennessee's offensive line in 2016. Like, they were able to run the ball, kind of control the tempo in football games, and really kind of just ground and pound teams. And it was impressive. And I was surprised last year. I honestly thought Tennessee was going to take another step forward, and it just didn't happen. You know, who knows what's going on there with the, you know, Mariota's being hurt. Just, you know, DeMarco Murray retired. He had an off year last year. But the fact of the matter is, you're right. They did take a step backwards. When you're talking about the Eagles D line, they're elite pretty much at two levels at every position, you know, they're going to have your hands full even if you have a great O line. So yeah, while the Titans have some talent up there, you know, they'll be basically, I think, pretty tired by halfway, maybe the end of the third quarter, because that's just the Eagles defensive line. That's the way they play. They're going to wear you out. They're going to keep fresh and keep guys rotating in. And if you're not doing that quick 3-step drop passes, I mean, they're going to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the point on Mariota too, before we get to the next topic. So when Carson Wentz obviously they traded up to go get him, the Eagles had a plan in place. They had 3 quarterbacks on the roster, basically. Well, 2 quarterbacks and another quarterback coach. John DeFilippo, you had Frank Reich, you had Doug Peterson. You look at Marcus Mariota's situation. They brought in a defensive coach. I have nothing against Mike Vrabel. But for this situation, I thought this was stupid, especially after who they had last year. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to bring in a head coach with an offensive mind to help out Mariota, and instead you got Vrabel. Like, what the hell's Mike Vrabel going to teach Mariota?
Yeah, it was a little confusing of a hire to me. I actually do like Mike Vrabel as a coach.
I do.
I didn't mind, you know, him as a candidate last year. I was like, yeah, you know, in the right situation. But this one, I mean, you usually think young, up and coming quarterback, you know, offensive minded head coach, or at least I don't know who their coordinator is off the top of my head, but at least an extremely strong offensive coordinator that's good with quarterbacks. And I mean, it seems like we just talked about, they like to run the football. I mean, if I had Mariota, I'd probably be running a bit more of a spread offense and try to cater to his talents more. But yeah, it was a confusing hire from their you know, standpoint. I expected them to go offensive minded, and they didn't. So we'll see. I mean, Mariota doesn't look like he's gotten much better. Again, he was hurt last week. He kind of played through an injury. So we'll see. That actually helps the Eagles a lot, in my opinion, too, is that he's banged up.
Yeah. And the only reason why he's playing is because Gabbert's in concussion protocol. And the other guy they brought in, Austin Davis, just got brought in, so he's still learning the playbook.
Mm-hmm.
So you got both of those things going on. All right, so now let's get to the Eagles' offense. This is probably what people want to hear about. So Carson Wentz's debut, he had 2 turnovers. I'll ask you, what did you think of his play last Sunday?
I mean, I thought the biggest takeaway was just how good he was moving around. Not only just his scrambles, but his pocket mobility. He looked pretty much like the same Carson Wentz in terms of that. And I remember I was sitting in the stands, just this guy is amazing, and my jaw was dropping so many times. It's like he missed 9 months, just comes right back out, and he mobility wise, footwork wise, looked great. Now, he did hold the ball a little bit too long a couple times. He had a couple bad reads where he locked on the tight end, which I'm sure you've covered because we talked about it.
Oh, I did. Oh yeah, Brett and I were all over it, and we some Eagles fans couldn't handle it. They're like, "Well, what did you expect? 9.5 months from the ACL? Like, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, like you're not like trash talking him. You know, he's human. He's not a freaking robot as much as he might seem like he is. But yeah, I mean, if you got to look at it unbiasedly, that is what it is. Like he made some mistakes. There was some rust to shake off. Overall, I was completely happy with it, but I expect to see some improvements this week, especially with the decision making, the holding the ball, etc.
There is one guy you shall never, ever, ever badmouth, and that is Carson Wentz. Do not do it.
I wonder how many people that have badmouthed or got mad at you badmouthing them were badmouthing them when we picked them. I know a lot of my friends were like, they hated the trade. They thought we gave up way too much, unproven. I'm just like, just wait, man. You don't understand what this guy's got between his ears.
And when I say that there was nobody who wanted Carson Wentz more than me, I'm literally telling the truth.
Or except maybe me, because I was like, as soon as I saw videos of him talking about football and watched this film, I'm like, this guy he's got the freaking full package, man.
Yeah. I mean, I've obviously, like I've said the story before. I used to work at the Sports Network, and we used to cover the FBS or the FCS, I should say. And we were in charge of the rankings. We're not in charge of that anymore because the company got sold to Stats LLC, and I think they control that now. But that's what we did, and I knew about Carson Wentz. And I remember doing some Eagles videos, be like, yo, there's this kid, I'm telling you, if he's there in the second round, you better pull the trigger because this kid is special. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, then the workouts come and the combine comes, and he's just shooting up the charts. And I'm like, oh, my God, we're not going to get him now. This is awful. And then they traded up for the
motherfucker. I was so happy when we did that, man. That was great.
Yeah. I guess I know quarterbacks when I see them, huh? All right. Let's get into the offense then, obviously. Okay, so the one thing that happened last week, 19 of the 25 receptions, they went to the tight ends. But I did notice something on the tape. So I did a film study yesterday, like just showing 2 plays. Again, one couple guys couldn't handle it, but so he was staring down the tight ends, and there was an open window to Aguilar. So what that told me, well, he just stopped staring at the wide receivers. So after that play happened, the wide receivers actually had 3 receptions in the fourth quarter. So the play that had the open window to Aguilar, I'm sure that Doug and Carson had a little talk on the sideline after what happened. They got their little iPad out, they got the stills out, and Doug was just pointing. He's like, yo, you fucked up, Carson. There was an open window. And then all of a sudden, by God, Nelson Aguilar starts getting more involved in the fourth quarter. I don't think it was a coincidence.
No, definitely not. Not with the way they, basically adjust and mentally prepare and just, adjust on the fly. I mean, Doug Peterson's always making halftime adjustments, and him and Carson, they're just too intelligent not to be reviewing the plays every NFL team does. Carson sees he misses these reads. He's probably going to be the hardest on himself out of the entire staff. He's not going to let it happen again. That's just the type of player he is, the type of leader he is. And again, like I say all the time, we are blessed to have Peterson and Wentz because, this week, guarantee you won't see those same mistakes. He'll be making his reads. He'll be looking defenders off. He's not going to be locking on the tight ends. It's not going to happen again.
And you know what Brendan told me on the film study? He's like, I asked him, like, how long is it going to take? And he's like, this week.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's how good. That's how special he is. That's how special Carson is.
Okay.
I think he's completely right. Carson's just that good of a player. He's that good of a leader. He's not going to let himself keep repeating the same mistakes, especially ones that he knows he's outgrown. He shouldn't be making it.
Yeah, because my thing, I was like, well, if this is Alshon's first week coming back, like I still think they need a couple more weeks to really get back to what they were at last year. But he's like, It's like I think they can score 30 this week. I'm like, all right.
I don't know if they'll score that much, but I think you'll see improvements in Carson's game. I think the offense, the lack of an identity up front, or on the offense, that's a main concern that Doug Peterson said. I think the next couple of weeks, it's going to be we're going to be kind of creating our own identity, and we're going to have a chance this week, but hopefully they're not looking ahead to the big one next week because I know some of the fans are.
Yeah, and well, we'll get into that game next week, obviously. I'm already not feeling good about it, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, me neither. But we'll see what we do this week. Just got to get the dub.
I think the offense is a couple weeks away, and I don't think this Minnesota game is just coming too quick for the offense.
Yeah, and they get a long week to prepare too. So
yeah, I think this one's going to be an L, unfortunately. But
yeah, we'll see.
Like who knows? Carson could go out, throw 5 touchdowns, completely change my mind.
Yeah, and it's home, so that works for us.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this Tennessee defense. It's a very underrated one. It's actually a pretty good one, and they've got some dudes. They've got some guys in the front 7. Derek Morgan, obviously, big sack guy, and Brian Orakpo. So that's a pretty good tandem there that Carson Wentz is going to have to keep an eye on. So you got those two. Obviously, Jurrell Casey's been doing it for how long now? I mean, always one of the more underrated players in the NFL. So there's some guys in the front 7. There you go. On the secondary, they signed Malcolm Butler, but Malcolm Butler's, I think he's allowed 238 yards, something like that. I saw a stat today. So he's looking like Jalen Mills. Then they got Logan Ryan and Adoree Jackson, who I like, who Brendan likes to call a casino corner because all you do is go after interceptions. So it's a pretty solid defense overall. What do you think?
I definitely agree with you. They're underrated for sure. I mean, just look at the way Tennessee's won the past couple seasons. It's grind the ball out on offense, play good defense. They've got talent at all 3 levels. Some guys have moved around, but some former high draft picks there. I think Vaccaro, the safety, I don't know how good he's been this year, but I know he's bounced around, but he was a former high pick. I'm familiar face up front too. I think Benny Logan's their nose tackle. He's solid. Yeah, he's solid. Jurrell Casey's solid. Everything you said is spot on. The Eagles' offensive line's going to have their work cut out for them. They've been a little shaky at times this year. I think, again, once they get going, you're going to see the whole offense start get going. That's how we won last year. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough game for them. They're going to have to come ready to play. But I think basically we'll do just enough to get the dub.
Yeah, it's in pass protection too where I've seen the problem. The run blocking is never a problem, but pass pro, I mean, they allowed 5 sacks last week, even though it wasn't all on the O-line, as you kind of mentioned earlier. Wentz got to get rid of the ball sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. The line isn't there yet. It's not where it was in heading into the postseason, where they only allowed 2 sacks the entire way in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a couple times like Lane Johnson getting driven back, and I mean, he's a little undersized for a tackle. That wasn't happening last year, so I don't know if it's just they're kind of starting slow as collectively or what it is, but it's definitely hasn't looked like it did last year. I mean, granted, like you just said, it's kind of fresh in our minds the postseason, the end of the season, where they really played their asses off. And sometimes it does take a couple weeks for the big guys up front to get going. I remember back when I played, I was always a slow starter, so. We'll see. It's true. It took me a couple weeks to really play yourself into game shape.
Yeah. Well, they do say that the offense always takes longer than the defense.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, and I definitely think that's true, especially with an offense like us who came into the year so banged up. You didn't really have a chance to get that chemistry, the timing down in the offseason. For the defense, it's like the playbook. You go out there, you do your job, you play physical, you put yourself in a position to win.
Yep. All right. Next thing we're going to get into, obviously, big injury this week, Rodney McLeod. So I guess it was a tease because we initially saw the injury. We were fearing the worst. And then Monday came and Doug Peterson said he was good. And then Rodney later said he was fine. But obviously he's not fine. Now he's out for the season. So what are your thoughts now on this safety spot?
I mean, it's a huge loss. McLeod played really good down the stretch last year. He's been solid. He flies around. He makes plays. He ain't afraid to lay a hat on somebody. I mean, it's going to have to be Corey Graham going. I don't know. We're going to have to kind of see how he plays and adjust. We're probably going to end up signing somebody, but I think it's got to be Corey Graham. Just going to have to step up because he knows the playbook. He was there. He played with us last year, and he should be ready to step in. He's a veteran, so I don't want to be too aggressive and go make any moves without seeing how Corey Graham plays first.
Yeah, and I'll say this too about McLeod. He took a lot of heat last year, but he had pretty good 3 games to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, yeah, I thought last year he kind of started slow, but I thought he played good down the stretch. I mean, him and Jenkins were all over the place in the Super Bowl. And I thought he had a good 3 games to start the year for sure. So, I mean, just his losing his veteran presence back there, it's going to put more on Malcolm to kind of make sure, Corey's lined up, even though I just said he's a veteran, when you're not on the field, that stuff can happen. He's obviously a little more limited physically than McLeod, but we're just going to have to, make do, man. Next man up.
So, do I even ask about Earl Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, that's a no. As much as I love Earl Thomas, the player, I mean, he wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. So anybody that wants to be a Dallas Cowboy, and it's just I think they're asking too much anyway. Like, there's been rumors
Yeah,
of
I'd stay away from that.
declining the second round picks. Like, he's getting older. He's so good, but you don't want to give up a high round pick for that, especially if it's just a rental.
Yeah, I don't want to overpay for like no, I don't want to give up a first. No.
No, not yet. I think a first is not even in the question. I mean, I wouldn't even do a second, honestly. And they won't do it without that.
You trade it's like I said about the Le'Veon Bell situation. You trade for Earl Thomas if the stock isn't hot, you're able to kind of steal him away. But I'm not giving away a bunch of stuff. I've been asked like last couple of days, Earl Thomas thoughts. I just don't think it's going to happen. And it's like Le'Veon Bell. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think they're going to go with a veteran, just kind of like they did last year with the linebacker spot. They went and signed Dannell Ellerbe. They brought him in. So I think they're just going to go out and sign a veteran. And the guy that I'm looking at is Tyvon Branch. So he was a guy that tore his ACL last year. I don't know how healthy he is. But I would look at him, and if he's not healthy, I would take a look at Mike Mitchell, formerly of the Steelers. So it's like there's some players that are out there, there's some veterans that actually aren't bad safeties. TJ Ward is out there too, but I don't think he fits the Eagles scheme because he's more like a hitter and more of a strong safety type, and you're looking for a guy that needs to play that single high role. So that's not TJ Ward.
Yeah, no, TJ Ward is he's a truck machine, man. He just lays the wood down. The other 2 guys you mentioned, the 2 guys I heard mentioned on the radio today, and I think make a lot of sense. Mike Mitchell, for sure. He's a pretty smart player. I think he on Green Bay before too, or is he's always Pittsburgh? So he's like 32-ish, right?
You're thinking of Morgan Burnett.
Okay, maybe, yeah. But no, I mean, I know he's in his like what 31, 32. He's a solid player.
Yeah.
So and Tyvon Branch, I knew was athletic as hell. I mean, if I remember correctly, he was with Oakland at one point. Yeah. So I mean, either one of those guys, if they're available for cheap to come in, why not? Even if they don't play, their depth, it's someone with experience, kind of like you said, Dannell Ellerbe was last year. So either 2 of those make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So there you go. I think that's where they're going to go. I don't think they're going to get into the Earl Thomas sweepstakes. No. I just don't see it.
No, and I think that's not really a Howie move. It's very reactionary.
Yeah, a Howie move is stealing.
Yeah.
Howie likes to steal. He doesn't like to overpay.
Exactly. Yeah. If anything, we've seen, Howie's always the one getting the best end of the deal. And if we give up a first or a second for Earl Thomas, no, we'd be getting fleeced because you're probably getting 1 year of him, man. And even if, like, we got McLeod coming back, so we don't need him for more than 1 year.
Yeah. Although I do think McLeod will get cut after this year.
Oh, you think so?
I think that's where they would lean. I don't know. We'll see though, because of his like if they would have cut him this year, obviously heading into this year, I think they would have had to like actually spend money to cut him.
Yeah. Next year he's actually cap coming off.
Yeah. So and I think it's like $8 or $9 million. So
that's not a part.
It's a good chunk of change.
Yeah. What do you think about possibly them? I'm sure you've been asked about it, but converting Rasul Douglas. Do you still?
Oh, actually, I saw something about that today. So I was like, one of the things that I've been curious about. I'm like, would they switch? Would they put a corner at safety? But seeing the way that Doug Peterson and Jim Schwartz operate, I didn't think they would, because we saw the Dallas Goedert situation and like. Doug is like so adamant. I don't want to move pieces around. No, not moving pieces around. No. Even last year with Big V. No, we're not putting Lane Johnson left tackle. No. We're keeping him there, and Big V staying on the left. Like he's a big proponent of that. But something I heard from Corey Graham today, it sounds like Rasul Douglas and Avonte Maddox might take some snaps in like that hybrid Corey Graham role. So that was something I mentioned. Like, all right. I don't think they're going to take a corner and make him safety yet, but what I can see happening is like a hybrid role where they're taking snaps in the Corey Graham spot. And I think it was Corey Graham with the quote. I saw this on Twitter. So I don't remember where it came from. It's just in my head. But that's what I saw. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Douglas would be great for that kind of hybrid role.
I agree. I think Douglas is going to take over for McLeod next year.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be great in that role. It'd be a great way to kind of develop him just as a player, potentially maybe next year, year after going to safety. That would be awesome. And what better time to do it now? Like we just said, McLeod's out. Someone's going to have to take Graham's role. Graham's taking his role. That's a time for a young player like Douglas to step up. I mean, when he's played, he plays hard. He's played pretty decent. I mean, he's a little limited in his coverage skills, so why not? I mean, if we can get him on the field, I think Rasul Douglas is a good football player. I think no matter what, he might be not the best corner, but the guy can hit. He's got a nose for the ball. I'd like to see him out there for sure.
I look at it like the Devin McCourty situation in New England, where McCourty was a former cornerback, obviously made the switch to safety. But what McCourty's known for is his range and his ball skills.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Douglas is known for. So I'm not saying he's going to be Devin McCourty because that's just like crazy talk. But but the range is there. I mean, obviously, ball production was there. He had a bunch of picks in college. He had 8 his final year at West Virginia. So obviously, he can go get some picks.
Definitely, man, definitely. And I think even potentially seeing something like the game basically from the safety position, like it's going to help him track balls better. He can kind of play that center field spot. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for that kind of hybrid role that Graham played last year. I think Douglas would be a great fit there.
Yeah. So that's for this year. And then the next year, I'm thinking Douglas single high. I'm thinking Jalen Mills may be a safety because at some point I'm putting Sidney Jones on the outside.
Yeah, Sidney's got to get to the outside.
But my God, dude, he's just shutting people down.
He's looked great. He's looked absolutely great. I'm so happy.
I thought he'd be.
I'm so happy with it. Everybody hated the pick. Oh, he's not going to play. Well, we won the damn Super Bowl, and now we just got Sidney Jones back.
Yeah. Sidney Jones was like my favorite pick of the draft.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved the Sidney Jones pick.
Absolute steal. Absolute steal. So let's talk about Jalen Mills a little bit, too. Now, it's like I poke fun of him sometimes, but I don't think he's been as bad as the Philadelphia fans are saying. And I think what happened last week is, people saw the pass interference penalties, and because they were like kind of bad penalties, that they just associated it with Mills having a bad game. But if you actually take those 2 flags away, he actually had a really, really good game last week. Made some plays in the end zone, obviously on Ebron, made some nice tackles, had some pass breakups. So Jalen Mills actually had a good one on Sunday, and I think it's going to get better for him because these Tennessee receivers aren't any good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he's going to play good this week. He's been pretty good in the red zone, especially. I'd say the defense as a whole has. But Mills' skill set works for him down there. That's where you can be physical. You're not giving up as much ground behind you. So I mean, you're going to have to deal with it. He's going to get beat on big plays once in a while. He's going to get penalized, but look at how many games have come down to the red zone and the goal line type of plays. And Mills is great down there. I mean, we saw him make the play on Julio. I think was he the one that made the play was last week, right? And Barnett, and no, that was a sack to Barnett. But regardless, he's a physical corner. He's going to get into guys, and that's what you want. I don't know about moving him this. I don't know if he's a safety personally. I mean, I don't know, but you got to get Sidney Jones on the outside. But yeah, I think we also, like I said last week, we won the Super Bowl with him. So people that wanted to pull him out right away, no. I mean, he's not a slot corner. You got to leave him on the outside, but I don't know.
I mean, it's like people quickly forget what we used to have.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Nolan Carroll. What was the other guy?
Harry Williams. Fletcher.
Yeah, Bradley Fletcher.
Bradley Fletcher back.
That guy was one of the worst people I've ever seen put on a damn uniform for Philly, man.
I remember when I started the Bitter Birds, one of my first videos, I literally just took 3 pieces of burnt toast. I'm like, here's your Eagle secondary.
Yeah, no, it was bad. It was really bad at one point. Because I remember me growing up, I grew up with like the Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent, Lito, Sheldon Brown. We always had Dolph. Like I was used to these great defensive backfields. And we went through this period and it was just like shit. Like it was horrible. And at least now we've got good talent there, whether it's a little inconsistent, whatever. still got that up and coming talent in Sidney Jones, like we just talked about. He's going to be an absolute stud shutdown corner in about a year or two. So, I mean, just the turnaround, man, it's been nice because it's obviously defensive backfield is one of the most important spots on the field now with how much of a passing league it is. So, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah. So the one thing that I am curious about with the McLeod injury is are they now going to play less of the big nickel package? But with that being said, I do want to say this. The linebackers have played really well. I mean, I'm talking about Kamagruje Hill too. So if it's something where like obviously they went to the big nickel a lot more last year near the end of the season once Jordan Hicks went down. But now it's like they may not need to go to that as much. So the McLeod injury, I mean, it hurts obviously, but maybe they don't have to go to the big nickel as much.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they adjust. I think that Grugier Hill, he's looked really good when he's been out there, and it honestly is like kind of like cliche or corny as it sounds. Like I think just being voted a captain like elevated his play. I think that wearing that C, he goes out there and he knows like I got to get the job done. They're depending on me, especially the week one without Bradham. I mean, he played out of his mind. I mean, if he's going to be dependable, why not look at it more? Again, we're going to have to see how Corey Graham plays. It's going to be some adjustments in game, but I would not be afraid to go to the base 4-3 and run Grugier Hill out there as your third linebacker. I mean, it's what he is voted for, man. Like captains make big plays; they step up. So, got the C for a reason.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why he's a captain, it's because of special teams.
Yeah, no.
I got asked that one time, like,
because I saw it was for obviously for special teams, but just generally, dude, just being a captain on a football team, man, like especially a Super Bowl defender, you're expected to make plays regardless of where you're at. So
and for a guy like that too, I mean, he only came from like New England like 2 years ago, so
yeah,
he captain already. That's good for him.
Yeah, it's respect in the locker room for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to predictions. Who we got in this game?
I mean, this is a game that I don't think it's going to be as easy as some people think. Definitely not as easy as I would like. But it's a game the Eagles have to win. Coming off, not the best showing last week. Just they kind of grinded it out and got the dub against a game that they very well could have lost. I hope they're not looking ahead to Minnesota. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be slow. I got the Birds 23-17.
Okay. Yeah, I got something similar. I got 23-13. I think it's going to be tough for Tennessee to score. I mean, I got them scoring a touchdown, but I'm not sure they will score a touchdown the way this Eagles red zone defense is. And unless they hit on a big play, I don't know if they're going to score any touchdowns. 23 points for the offense. I still think they got to work out some kinks. I don't think it's going to be perfect yet. I think it's still going to take some time. So they'll get to 23 and not the 30 that Brendan thinks they're going to get to. We'll see. We'll see if Brendan's right or not. If they get to 30, then this one's going to be a laugher.
Yeah, I mean, if they get to 30, man, yeah, the game will be over by the third quarter, dude.
Yeah.
Tennessee's not going to put more than 20 points on us, and that's if they have to play an A game. And even if they're A game against us, it's not going to work because, like we said, we're the best running defense in the league. You try to run the football on us, you're not going to have that much success. So, we'll see. 30 points, definitely be a laugher.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a good matchup for the Birds, and obviously one that I think they win. But then next week you got the big one with Minnesota, and we'll see about that. I'm worried about the quick passing game, and I'm worried about Thielen and Diggs and the receivers that they have.
Oh yeah, I'm worried that they're. I think what are they 1-2 now, or 1-2-1 now? Yeah. So I mean,
I wanted them to win last night. Actually.
So did I. I mean, because obviously the Rams would have a loss. Two, yeah, then you don't have a 1-2-1 Minnesota coming, basically saying, okay, this is almost a must-win game.
Yeah. But you beat Minnesota, all of a sudden you take them out of the picture.
Yeah, if we hand it to Minnesota next week, man, they go 1-3-1. That's huge, especially in terms of home field advantage or whatever. That's huge. But that's next week. They got to get it done this week.
Yeah, that is next week, and that's going to be a fun preview. We'll see how the Eagles look. We'll see if they will change my mind. But as of right now, and the funny thing is, like, I know how bad Minnesota's defense looks. Like, I get that. Like, I get what the people are trying to tell me, and the thing with Everson Griffin, he's not back yet, all that. I get it, but we'll see. we'll see about that. That's for next week. All right, so that's it for this show. You got any final thoughts?
Nah, man, just go Birds, man. Got to get that dub. Get to 3-1.
All right. What's Temple's record? They're 2-2 now.
They're 2-2 now. Yeah, they're looking a lot better, and they're playing Adazio this week. Guys being dudes.
Oh man, I pulled Avonte Davis in the first half of game 2. I quit on the team. They were losing to who was it? Tulsa or
Tulsa, Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, they're getting trounced by Buffalo, right? Yeah. They lose to Villanova in week 1. They get trounced by Buffalo week 2. And what do you know? They beat Maryland in week 3. This team is weird.
Yeah, they had the quarterback switch, man. Ever since they put that other guy in there.
Yeah. They got rid of Nuke Tile and they put in who do they put in?
I don't even know his name, but he's a lot better.
I gotta watch Temple. I still got the Maryland game on my DVR. I haven't even watched it yet.
It's because you're so busy, man. You're pumping out quality work.
That is true. No, that is true. I've been very busy, and I don't know if you got to see like the Adrian's Notebook stuff that I was doing. I don't know if you've been watching the channel, but obviously the scoring that I do, and I wanted to do some of that for the season, but like I've been so damn busy, I can't. I don't have time for it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I totally get that. Trust me. How busy I've been at work. It's been hard for me.
I wanted to pump out a recap from the game last night. I just didn't have time to do it today. So
yeah. Oh, dude, that's part of finding your way to success, man. Hard work.
Yeah. Keep the grind going. All right, that's it for this show. That's James Worthington. I'm Adrian Fedque. Go Eagles, and don't dislike this video just because I said some bad things about Carson Wentz this week.